The night I heard the first whisper. I have always been drawn to forests. There's something about the way the trees stretch endlessly toward the sky, their branches locking together like a cathedral roof. Feels both comforting and terrifying at the same time. The forest near my hometown, however, was different. People didn't go there after sunset. They said the trees were cursed, that at night you could hear voices calling out voices that didn't belong to anyone human. Of course, I never believed those stories. I thought they were just tales told by old villagers to keep children from wandering too far. But one night, curiosity got the better of me. It was late October, and the air carried the sharp bite of winter's approach. The moon was hidden behind clouds, leaving the world draped in near darkness. I slipped out of my house, flashlight in hand, my breath rising like smoke in the cold air. Every step I took toward the forest felt heavier, like my body was warning me to turn back, but I pushed forward. The forest loomed ahead, its trees swaying as though whispering secrets to each other. I clicked on my flashlight, the narrow beam cutting through the blackness. My shoes crunched on fallen leaves as I entered the woods, and the sound seemed unnaturally loud, like the forest was listening. For the first 15 minutes, nothing unusual happened. I walked deeper, shining my light on twisted branches, hollow logs, and thorny bushes. My heart was racing, but I told myself it was only the thrill of doing something forbidden. Then, just as I stopped to catch my breath, I heard it, a voice. It wasn't loud, not at first. It was a faint murmur, like someone whispering just behind my shoulder. My body froze. The sound didn't belong to the rustling leaves or the wind. It was too deliberate, too human. Help. The word was so soft, I wasn't sure if I imagined it. I swung my flashlight around, scanning the trees. Nothing. Just the endless forest staring back at me. Help me. This time it was clearer, and I felt my stomach drop. The voice was female, fragile, almost pleading. It seemed to drift between the trees, impossible to locate. My throat tightened. I wanted to run, but another part of me, foolish curiosity, pushed me further inside. "Hello?" I called out, my voice cracking. "Is someone there?" No answer. Only silence, thick and heavy, until the whisper returned. "Please don't leave me here." It was closer now. Much closer. My flashlight beam shook in my trembling hand as I tried to find the source. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around and run home, but my legs carried me forward instead. I stumbled over roots and dead branches, chasing the voice that seemed to fade and reappear, leading me deeper and deeper into the dark. At one point, I was sure I saw a figure between the trees, a pale silhouette standing still. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. But when I blinked, the figure was gone. Suddenly, everything went quiet. The whisper stopped. The forest held its breath. I stood there in the dark, my flashlight barely strong enough to pierce the shadows, and realized I was completely lost. Then, just as panic began to claw at me, the voice returned so close, it felt like it was right next to my ear. "You shouldn't have come." My blood turned to ice. This wasn't a plea for help anymore. The tone was different, narrow, warning, almost angry. I spun around, but there was no one there, just trees stretching endlessly, their twisted branches clawing at the sky. My flashlight flickered, the beam sputtering in and out. And in that stuttering light, I thought I saw something move between the trunks, something that didn't walk like a person. That was the moment I realized the stories weren't just old village tales. The whispers were real. I wasn't alone in the forest. Deeper into the trees, deeper into fear, my hands were trembling so badly that the flashlight beam danced across the trees in erratic patterns. I took a step back, my heel crunching down on a branch that cracked like a gunshot in the silence. I froze, holding my breath, waiting for the whisper again. But there was nothing. Only the pounding of my own heart. I told myself it had to be my imagination, a trick of fear and darkness. Maybe I had read too many horror stories or heard too many rumors, but deep down, I knew what I heard was real. The voice didn't sound like something my brain invented. It carried weight, tone, emotion. I should have turned back right then, but the problem was, I didn't even know which way to go anymore. Every direction looked the same. Endless trees, shadows swallowing shadows. I spun slowly in place, trying to remember the path I had taken. but the forest was like a maze, and I was its trapped rat. That's when I saw it again. Between two thick tree trunks, there was movement. My light caught on something pale like skin. My chest tightened as I focused the beam. At first I thought it was a woman. Her long hair hung over her face, her body unnaturally still, almost as if she had been waiting for me. Are you okay?" I asked, my voice shaking. She didn't answer. She just stood there, her head tilted slightly to the side, as if studying me. My breath caught in my throat. Then the whisper came again, but this time it wasn't behind MIT, came directly from her. "Help. Me." The sound didn't match the way her lips moved. In fact, her mouth didn't move at all. The whisper slid into my ears like cold smoke, wrapping around my thoughts. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping my flashlight. "Stay away from me," I shouted. When I blinked, she was gone, just vanished into the shadows as though she had never been there. My knees felt weak, and I leaned against a tree, trying to steady my breathing. The air was colder now, unnaturally so, and I could see my breath puffing out in frantic bursts. That's when I heard it again, but this time, it wasn't a single voice, it was many. Dozens of whispers filled the forest around me, overlapping, weaving together in a low chorus that made my skin crawl. Some sounded like men, others like children, all blending into a chilling symphony of desperation. "Don't leave us. Stay with us. You belong here." I clamped my hands over my ears, but the voices didn't stop. They weren't coming through the air anymore, they were inside my head. I stumbled blindly through the dark, crashing through bushes, tripping over roots, not caring where I was going as long as it was away from those voices. My flashlight beam flickered wildly, sometimes cutting out completely, forcing me to smack it against my palm. Finally, I burst into a small clearing. The sudden openness gave me a momentary sense of relief. At least here I could see around me. I doubled over, panting, my lungs burning. That's when I noticed the smell. It was faint at first, like something rotten carried on the wind. But as I raised my head, I realized it was stronger here, clinging to the air. I shined my light around and saw what looked like old, tattered pieces of cloth caught in the branches. Closer inspection made my stomach twist. These weren't just rags. They were scraps of clothing, weather-beaten and torn, hanging like forgotten trophies. Beneath one of the trees, half buried in the leaves, was a shoe, a child's shoe. My breath hitched and I staggered back. The whispers grew louder, circling me, pressing into my skull. "Don't run, don't run. Stay, stay." Suddenly, I felt a hand brush against the back of my neck. Whipped around, my flashlight shaking in my hand, but no one was there. Only empty air and swaying branches. My skin crawled as though invisible fingers had just trailed across me. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. The voices weren't trying to lead me out. They were pulling me deeper in. The shadows that followed me. The forest was no longer silent. Every step I took was matched by something else. The sound was subtle, soft crunches on the leaves. Faint shifts in the underbrush, but it was enough to make the hair on the back of my neck rise. At first, I thought I was imagining it. I stopped walking, held my breath, and listened. For a few seconds, there was only the sigh of the wind through the branches. Then, just behind me, I heard it again. Step, slow, deliberate. I spun around, shining my flashlight wildly. But there was nothing, only the endless sprawl of trees and shadows stretching like claws. The beam of light revealed no figure, no movement, but I knew I wasn't alone. I forced myself to keep moving, quickening my pace. The whispers hadn't stopped either. They were softer now, almost teasing, like they knew I was trying to escape. "You can't run forever. We're right behind you. You belong to us now." I clutched the flashlight so tightly my knuckles ached. My legs carried me forward on pure adrenaline. I didn't care about direction anymore. I just needed distance. Any distance from those voices. But no matter how far I went, the footsteps followed. At one point, I glanced back and saw movement between the trees. Not a person, but a shape. A black mass darker than the shadows themselves, gliding instead of walking. It moved unnaturally, like smoke caught in the wind, yet somehow heavy, purposeful. My chest constricted. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. I turned and ran, crashing through the undergrowth, branches whipping against my face and arms. The whispers grew louder, overlapping until they became almost unbearable. They weren't just behind me anymore, they were beside me, above me, inside me. Don't fight it. Join us. Forever. I stumbled into another clearing, smaller this time, with a dead oak tree in the center. Its branches stretched out like skeletal fingers. I pressed my back against it, shining my flashlight all around. That's when I saw them. Not one shadow, many. Figures standing just at the edge of the clearing, half hidden by the trees. Their shapes were vague, human-like but wrong. Too tall, too thin, their limbs slightly bent in ways they shouldn't be. The light from my flashlight seemed to slide off them, as though they absorbed it. My heart hammered in my chest. I couldn't count how many there were, 10, maybe more, all standing still, watching. Then, as one, they stepped forward. I panicked, fumbling in my pocket for my phone. The screen lit up, but there was no signal. Of course there wasn't. My shaking thumb hit the flashlight button, adding the weak glow of the phone to the failing beam of my handheld. Both lights flickered, straining against the darkness that pressed in. The figures didn't stop. They moved slowly, deliberately, closing the circle around me. Stay. Don't leave us. You can't escape. The whispers poured from them now, each figure contributing to the chorus. It was overwhelming, like a tidal wave of voices crashing into my skull. I dropped my phone, clutching my head, trying to block out the sound. Stop, please, stop. I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by theirs. The dead oak behind me groaned as if alive, and I felt something brush against my shoulder like a cold hand reaching from the bark itself. I jerked forward in terror, and for a moment, the shadows paused. That pause was all I needed. Bolted, ducking between two of the figures, and my shoulder clipped one of them, and for a split second, I felt what they were made of. Not flesh, not air, something cold, damp like water soaked in ash. My skin burned where it touched me, as if their very existence was poison. I didn't stop running. Branches tore at me, roots snagged my feet, but I kept going. The whispers followed, more frantic now, angry. You can't leave. Come back. We're not done with you. But I didn't look back. I don't know how long I ran. Minutes? Hours? The forest stretched endlessly. My sense of time shattered. My flashlight finally died, plunging me into total darkness. But still, I ran until my lungs felt like fire. At last I collapsed, gasping, my body trembling. The whispers had grown faint, distant, but I knew they hadn't disappeared. They were still out there, waiting. And for the first time, I realized something far more terrifying than being lost. The forest didn't want me to find my way out. It wanted me to stay. The truth behind the voices, I don't know how long I lay there on the damp ground, too afraid to move, too exhausted to keep running. My chest heaved as I stared up at the treetops, their jagged branches forming a black web against the cloudy sky. For a moment, the forest was quiet again, and I almost convinced myself the voices had been nothing more than hallucinations brought on by fear and exhaustion almost. Because when I finally pushed myself up, something caught my eye. Not far from where I had collapsed, half covered in moss and dead leaves, was a stone. At first, I thought it was just another boulder. But as I brushed the dirt away with trembling fingers, I saw the markings. Letters, carved into the stone in jagged, uneven strokes. I leaned closer, my heart hammering as I read the words. We are still here, my breath caught in my throat. The letters looked old, weather-worn. But there was something about them. Something fresh, like they had been touched recently. My fingers came away smeared with damp soil, but also something darker. A reddish stain that looked horribly like dried blood. Before I could process it, the whispers returned. Not from the trees this time, but from the ground itself, vibrating through the stone beneath my hand. We told you not to come. You should have stayed away. I stumbled back, nearly falling. My mind screamed at me to run again, but my legs felt rooted in place. That's when I noticed something else. Faint shapes etched into the trees surrounding the clearing. Symbols scratched deep into the bark. Circles, lines, spirals. They weren't random, they were deliberate, arranged in some kind of pattern. It hit me then this wasn't just a forest, it was a graveyard. I don't mean with tombstones or flowers. No, this was older, far older. The ground beneath me was heavy with death, with memories that refused to stay buried. And the voices. They weren't demons or monsters. They were people. People who had died here. A chill ran through me as I realized the whispers weren't calling me for no reason. They wanted me to know their story. Shaking, I pressed my back against a tree and closed my eyes, trying to block everything out. But instead of silence, images filled my head, flashes like broken film reels. I saw a group of villagers carrying torches. I saw them dragging men, women, even children into the forest. The victims screamed, begged, but the villagers' faces were cold, merciless. I saw ropes thrown over branches, shallow pits dug into the earth. I saw blood soaking into the ground where I now stood, and I heard their final cries. "We didn't do it. Please, not my child. Why are you doing this?" The visions ended as suddenly as they began, leaving me gasping, sweat pouring down my face despite the cold. My knees buckled, and I realized what the forest had shown me. This place was cursed, yes, but not by some ancient evil. It was cursed by human cruelty. The people who were murdered here never left. Their souls were trapped, bound to the trees, the soil, the very air, and now they wanted me. Not because I was special, not because I had done anything wrong, because I was here, alive, breathing. Something they no longer were. Stay. Be one of us. Finish what they started. The whispers swirled around me again, but this time I felt the desperation in them. It wasn't just anger, it was hunger. They needed someone to carry their suffering, someone to take their place. The shadows reappeared at the edges of the clearing, tall and thin, their movements twitchy and unnatural. But now that I knew the truth, I saw them differently. They weren't demons. They were the remnants of the murdered, twisted by rage and sorrow into something inhuman. I staggered backward, my pulse thundering in my ears. "I'm not staying," I whispered, though my voice shook. "I'm not one of you." But even as I said it, I felt the weight of the forest pressing down, the ground clutching at my feet like it didn't want to let go. That's when a new voice rose above the others. Unlike the whispers, this one was clear, sharp, almost commanding. "You can't leave. The forest chooses who stays." The shadows surged forward as the voice echoed through the trees. My last thread of courage snapped. I turned and ran once more, praying that somehow, against all odds, I would find a way out before the forest made its final choice. Escaping the forest or becoming part of it, I don't remember how long I ran after that last voice. Time seemed to lose all meaning inside the forest. Minutes stretched into hours, or maybe hours shrank into minutes. I couldn't tell anymore. All I knew was that I had to keep moving. If I stopped, the shadows would catch me. The whispers never faded completely. They trailed behind me, beside me, even above me in the canopy. Sometimes they were desperate, begging me to stay. Other times they were furious, warning me that no one escapes. My legs burned and my lungs screamed for air. Trees blurred past me in the dim light, but somehow I began to notice something different. The air felt lighter, less suffocating. And through the gaps in the branches, I thought I saw a faint gloam light. Hope flickered in my chest. Maybe I was close to the edge, but the forest wasn't done with me yet. The ground shifted beneath my feet, roots twisting up like snakes to trip me. I fell hard, the flashlight smashing against a rock and going dark forever. Pain shot through my arm, but I scrambled back up, refusing to stay down. That's when the shadows came. They poured out from between the trees, dozens of them surrounding me. Their forms writhed and shifted, sometimes looking human, sometimes like something else entirely. Their voices rose in a deafening chorus that made my skull feel like it would crack. "Stay with us. You belong here. No one leaves." I backed away until my shoulders hit the rough bark of a tree. My body shook violently, my breath coming in short gasps. For the first time, I truly believed I was going to die. Here, not just die, but become one of them. Another whisper in the forest. Then, in the chaos of the voices, I heard something different. A single word, sharp and clear, cutting through the noise. "Run." It wasn't a whisper like the others. It didn't feel hungry or angry. It felt urgent, protective. For a moment, I wondered if one of the lost souls pitied me, if some fragment of their humanity remained. I didn't stop to question it. I pushed off the tree and ran toward the faint glow I had seen earlier. The shadows lunged after me, their forms darting through the trees like smoke. Their whispers turned into screams. "You can't escape, you are ours." But I ran harder than I ever had in my life. Branches tore at my face, my arms, my clothes. My chest felt like it would burst. Still, the glow grew brighter until suddenly I broke through. I stumbled out of the tree line and collapsed onto cold grass. The forest ended abruptly, as though it had spat me out. Above me, the clouds had parted, and the full moon bathed the open field in silver light. For a long time, I just lay there, gasping, too weak to move. Slowly, I forced myself to look back. The forest loomed behind me, dark and silent. The shadows didn't cross the tree line. They lingered just inside, their tall forms watching. The whispers had stopped, but even in silence, I could feel their hatred. And yet, in that moment, I also felt something else: relief. I was out. I had escaped, or so I thought. Because when I finally staggered to my feet and began walking back toward town, I realized something terrifying. The whispers hadn't disappeared completely. They were quieter now, faint, but they were still there. Inside me. Sometimes they beg, sometimes they warn. Sometimes when the night is too quiet, I swear I hear them laugh. I escaped the forest, but part of it came with me. And deep down, I know this truth. One day it will call me back.